Guys, let's do it. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. Me and him, we are gonna talk about it. Um, what we're gonna talk about? We're gonna talk about a thing that some of you, most of you, probably have never heard of, which is called a mother-in-law basement. And this is kind of a Utah thing. Utah, for those of you that don't know, is a very family-oriented place. Many children are had in Utah. They're birthed, and many households have 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 of these children. And it's a very strong family dynamic of a state. And one of the kind of little unique things that we have here is what's called a mother-in-law basement. And essentially what a mother-in-law basement is, it's a basement that has, it's basically a completely independent unit within the house. So it has its own entrance, separate from the main entrance of the house. Like it has an exterior entrance where you can come into the basement. It has, beds, bath, the big one, obviously kitchen, and if even like if they really went all out on it, separate laundry. That's like, man, you guys really did it right. Like you even got separate laundry, separate kitchen, obviously, but the laundry is kind of the one that you see less and less out here. So it's a completely independent unit. And essentially what you're doing with this, don't take any of this as advice. I'm just telling you kind of how Utah works. Essentially what you're doing is you're taking a single family home and you're turning it into, it's not a duplex because it's not meant to be rented. It's for family. It's for like in-laws. Like that was kind of the original point, right? It's like it's a place for, with the strong family dynamic, as your parents in shit age, and instead of sending them to the home, you house them in your home in the basement, but they have their own entrance and kitchen and everything. So it's like, hey, your folks come to stay with you, or your in-laws, which I guess mother-in-law, they come to stay with you, and it's like, hey, they get to live in your house, but they don't really like interfere with your space. Now there is typically, of course, a interior door that connects you to the upstairs, because like, hey, basements and upstairs, obviously there's a connection point there, but so these are used in a couple different ways. Of course, many people will use these for, what they are meant for, which is to house their either large family or their in-laws or their parents as they start getting older. Some people are known to rent out mother-in-law basements because it has its own entrance. And if you kind of look at it, you're like, hey, essentially, it's a duplex, right? Now, the city will frown upon this, and I don't know all the, like, what is allowed, what is not allowed. So again, I'm not, none of this is advice. I'm just kind of, taking you a sneak peek behind the scenes here of how some of this stuff works. It is an interesting sort of investment strategy if you were going to just take it there, because you're like, man, I got a mortgage on my house, and whatever, let's just say your mortgage is $2,000, right? I got a $2,000 a month mortgage, and I live in the upstairs. I don't need the basement. Like, there's nothing down there that I need. I don't need the extra space. Maybe I don't have 6 kids or whatever, and you're just like, normal, folks like me, and you live with a dog, or it's you and your girlfriend, or whatever the case may be, or just one child, and you're like, I don't need that basement. In a hypothetical world, you could rent the basement out for shit, I don't know, $1,500 a month, and you're like, damn, my mortgage just went down to like $500 a month, right? So some people would probably be known to use the basement as a offset point for their mortgage. And hell, I don't even know, but there's some people that probably eventually move out of their house. They might even rent the upstairs and the downstairs out separately, and like, shit, they could probably cash flow the hell out of their property at that point. So, I don't even know if that happens, but I guess it could, though. So it is an interesting sort of thing when you think about it, in terms of, if someone's going to get into real estate investing and maybe they didn't have the budget to actually do a duplex or triplex or something like that, you're like, huh, it's kind of an interesting route. And given that it's a mother-in-law basement, they do command they sell for lower prices than traditional duplexes. So it's like, man, it really is pretty interesting. Interesting little nugget there. They do sell very quickly. That's one of those things, if you're buying a home and you're like, I want to buy something with a mother-in-law basement to house my in-laws, of course. They sell very quickly and for top dollar, because I don't know, I guess some people are clued into the fact that you might be able to rent out the basement. So, hey, take all that with a grain of salt, just take it all with a grain of salt, everyone. That said, on to more important things here. This is Old Elk. Old Elk is a bourbon that you kind of see around a lot of the bourbon pages. It kind of has one of those, man, the bourbon scene, as I get more and more into it, it's such a fascinating thing because there's this, like, it's a big community about flexing on other people. And I admit, I kind of am nerding out on a little bit, even though I hate that shit. Old Elk isn't a flex on someone bottle because it's like 45, 50 bucks. It's not an expensive bottle. It's a mid-tier bottle, but they are kind of hard to find. So you'll see this in some people's like nice collections and shit is something that I just don't think is that easy to find. I got it not that long ago, and it's good. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like all that, or it's like, oh man, that's incredible. I'd even say there's other $50 bottles of bourbon that I would prefer over Old Elk. It is a cool bottle. I give them that. And if we're being honest, the bottle and the corks and everything themselves are part of the appeal of this, right? Is collecting all these cool bottles and stuff. So I'd say good, not great. Definitely good, not great though. So it's probably something that I would keep in my stash, like to have one on the shelf at all times. But anyway, guys, I hope you're having a great week, or had a great week. I guess this is probably Friday when this bad boy's coming out. And if you're watching videos about mother-in-law basements on Friday, you're either a very savvy person that wants to learn about things in life, or you have absolutely nothing to do. So I don't know if I judge you for the better or the worse for watching this channel, because it's probably the worst real estate channel on the internet. So with that said, we're going to move on. I'm going to move on with my weekend. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a drink for me this weekend. Watch the UFC fights, right? I don't know if anyone, sorry guys, when I pet the dog and it's transition seasons, dog hair just flies all over and it winds up in your nose and beard and shit. And it's just, let's move on. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.